Why hello, I didn't see you there. Welcome back to MTG ASMR with me, your host Kenny. Today we're playing some more Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and we are trying a new archetype, yet again, red-blue. And, as usual, our deck is not very good, as far as I can tell. Who knows, maybe we're going to rattle off 7 wins in a row. But, as you may have surmised from the title of this episode, and the name of this deck, Coin Toss, our odds aren't much better than 50-50. So what do we have going on? We have a Wizard class, which we first picked. We have a Trickster's Talisman, an equipment that gives +1/+1 and can make a copy of a creature. What's the issue? We don't have any good creatures to copy. We do have creatures. We have Earth Cult Elementals, 6/6s at the top end. We also have Air Cult Elementals, 6 mana 2/5 flying at the top end that bounce a creature. We have Contact Other Plane to draw cards. We do have a rare. We have Dragon Turtle, a 3 mana 3/5 flash. When it comes into play, it taps itself and another creature, and they don't untap. We have Magic Missile, probably our best card, straight up. 3 mana, 3 damage, divided as we choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. We have a few red removal spells, we have a few blue removal spells. That's really all the deck is. I am feeling somewhat inspired because I just finished watching Luis Scott Vargas's latest draft video on Channel Fireball, in which he went 2-3 and was eliminated from the tournament. We hope to emulate the Grandmaster himself. Let's begin. Okay. Our opponent will be going first. We have a hand with Wizard class, which lets us draw some cards. Burning Hands, a 2 mana removal spell. Charmed Sleep, a 3 mana removal spell. And Swarming Goblins, a 5 mana 4/3. This will have to be good enough, I think. I think this is pretty typical of what this deck will be capable of, i.e. not that much. Opponent went Swamp first. We're going to play Island and then Wizard class. So it's an enchantment. We have no maximum hand size. Hooray. That's really irrelevant. What it means is that later we can dump 3 mana into this thing and draw some extra cards. Opponent is on black-red, but they haven't played anything else yet. No matter. We play our second land, pass back. We're kind of hoping that they play a creature with 2 toughness, so we can cast Burning Hands on it during their end step. Instead, they check for traps, meaning they're going to take a card out of our hand. And they take away our Burning Hands. We drew Ray of Frost, so we immediately replace that spell. We have nothing else to do right now, so we're going to level up our Wizard class and draw 2 cards. Netting us another land and a Soul Knife Spy. I was hoping very briefly that our opponent was stuck on lands, but they play a 4th land, and they play a Death Priest of Mirkul. A 2/2 creature, gives their skeletons, vampires, and zombies +1/+1, and if a creature dies on their turn, they can pay 1 to make a skeleton. In response, we are going to play Soul Knife Spy. So this is a 3/2. If we can connect with them, we get to draw a card. Depending on what they do this turn, we might be able to enchant their 1 creature, make it so it can't block, get in with the spy, and draw a card. Can you imagine drawing an extra card? 1 more card than standard. Opponent is attacking us with a 2/2. Very aggressive. We're going to take it. So it's 17-20. They presumably have a removal spell or blocker. They haven't played anything. I think they have something in hand. They have 4 mana untapped, and they left up no blockers. We're going to attack. That's all there is to it. Opponent plays Manticore. So this is a 4-mana 2/1 flash flying. There's nothing we can really do about this. So they use their whole turn to stop our spy from connecting. You know what? We're not too concerned about that. What we will do now is play Swarming Goblins. Use up our mana for the turn. We make a 4/3 creature. We rolled well, and so we get 2 extra 1/1 goblins. All in all, not too bad. Our opponent plays Zombie Ogre, a 4/6. Now it's a 4/6, I should say. It's getting +1/+1 from the Death Priest. And it lets them venture if creatures die on their turn. That's okay. What we're going to do now is cast Charmed Sleep on the Zombie Ogre, which will tap it and keep it tapped. And then we're going to attack with our 4/3. It connects. It is now 17-16. We have 2 mana left over, but not that much to do with it, honestly. We're just going to end the turn. We could have used Ray of Frost on the Death Priest, but there's really no reason to do that. Opponent passes the turn without doing anything else. They are very into just passing the turn. They have 5 mana up. Again, not much we can do if they have something. So our opponent blocked with their Death Priest, and they are casting Feign Death, which means they're going to get their Death Priest back with a 1/1 counter on it. So now it's a 3/3. I find all of this very unimpressive. So here's what we'll do. We're going to cast Ray of Frost on the Death Priest, so it stays tapped. And then we're going to play Plundering Barbarian, a 2/2 that will make a treasure token. End of turn, our opponent played Manticore, which kills our Swarming Goblins because it took damage that turn. All of this is fine so far. What's less fine, our opponent played Hand of Vecna, a rare legendary equipment. They're putting on their Manticore. What it does is, at the beginning of combat on their turn, the equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in their hand. So it's giving it +2/+2 right now. So they hit us for 4. We're at 13 now. Our opponent is at 16. We still have another removal spell in the tank. We have 1 more Charmed Sleep, which we will likely be using on the Manticore. We attack with everything. Our opponent is at 12, we're at 13. We could Charmed Sleep the Manticore, but honestly, we are providing a faster clock, and we have a 6/6 Earth Cult Elemental we could cast this turn. I think we'd rather use up our mana and cast that. We rolled a 10 when it came into play, which means our opponent sacrifices a permanent. Presumably, they're going to be ditching one of their creatures that is being locked down. That's exactly what they do. Our opponent's Manticore hits us for 5. It's now 8-12. And then they play a Hired Hexblade, which is a 2/2 creature, nothing more. If they had spent mana from a treasure to cast it, they would have drawn a card. They did not. We're going to attack with our Earth Cult Elemental and our Plundering Barbarian. And you know what? Maybe our goblins too. If our opponent wants to take an extra 6 damage by not blocking our elemental. That was a good call. They block the elemental. They're going to take 4 this turn. 8-8. We're all tied up. What we'll do this turn is Charmed Sleep the Manticore, so it does not untap. We're then going to cast... We'll save this. We have Unexpected Windfall, which lets us discard a card to draw 2 cards and make 2 treasure tokens. but it's an instant, so we can wait on that. It's now on our opponent to do something. They have no creatures that can do anything right now. They are enchanted and asleep. And we currently have 9 power on the board to their 8 life. They need to do something big this turn. Let's see what they do. They surrender. A wise decision. We are 1-0. Let's see what happens in Game 2 after the break.
Ready for a rules-light, narrative-failing forward collaborative storytelling tabletop role-playing game?
Unsure of where to start?
Powered by the Players is an actual play podcast featuring mini campaigns and one-shots of all your favorite Powered by the Apocalypse games.
Each campaign or one-shot will be a different PBTA game with a rotating cast of diverse players. We've got Masks, a teenage superhero drama.
Bluebeard's Bride, a feminist horror retelling.
Monster of the Week, a supernatural mystery.
Escape from Dino Island, a Jurassic Park-inspired adventure.
Crossroads Carnival, a Depression-era sideshow noir.
The next game you play could be yours, so join Morgan, Kristen, and Diana.
And let's power up.
Follow us on Twitter at PBT Players.
Subscribe on your favorite podcatcher.
So the coin came up heads in Game 1. Here we are getting ready for Game 2, where we have, I think, a fine opening hand, and we get to go first even. We have a Dragon's Fire, 2-mana removal spell. Dragon Turtle, a 3-mana play that can buy us some time. And then, in the far distant future, Air Cult Elemental, which we can cast on turn 6. Good enough. We'll play Mountain and go. Opponent plays Mountain and Boots of Speed. Aggressive, very aggressive. We play Island and pass. They play Plains and pass. They seem to be an aggressive deck. That's what Boots of Speed would indicate. This is an equipment that gives +1/+0 and haste. Equip 1. The fact that they haven't cast anything yet is a good sign for us, I think. We'll play Island and pass the turn. There's a world where they play a creature and try to equip, and we get to Dragonfire. Or they could keep doing what they're doing, which is passing the turn to us, and we can play the Wizard class we just drew, and level it up to draw some cards. I love drawing cards. Thank God we did. We drew more lands. We need to get through these lands and get to actual spells. Our opponent played their own Unexpected Windfall, meaning they drew some cards and played some treasure tokens, so they could potentially have a very threatening play next turn. That's fair enough. We're going to play Clever Conjurer that we drew. This is a 2/3. We can tap it to untap another permanent. Only as a sorcery, we learned recently, to our pain. We have 2 mana up, so we have Dragon's Fire. There still is a world where they go to play something and we kill it with Dragon's Fire before they can equip it, or after they equip it even. There's also a world where they use their treasures and cast a 7-drop. Okay, we don't live in either of those worlds. They cast a Hoarding Ogre. Okay, they're going to equip, so we are going to kill the Ogre with our Dragon's Fire. They still have 2 treasures available. It's possible they have a combat trick. They don't. We kill the Ogre, we use up their turn. Beautiful. I'm pretty pleased that that is the best play they had, with 7 possible mana to their name. We now have potentially 7 mana. There are a lot of things we could do here. We could attack them. We could cast a Plundering Barbarian, which we just drew, to destroy something they have. one of their artifacts. We could cast Unexpected Windfall and make some treasure tokens. We could level up our wizard class, and honestly I think that might be our best play overall. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to cast Unexpected Windfall, discarding a land, to draw 2 cards and make 2 treasures. Again, we drew even more lands, so it's a very good thing we did that. Now we're going to untap one of our lands with our Conjurer, bring Wizard class up to level 3, which now means that whenever we draw a card, we get a 1/1 counter for one of our creatures. Our opponent currently has no creatures in play. This is a threatening ability we have just played. Bear in mind as well, we still have Dragon Turtle in hand to lock down a creature, and we still have Air Cult Elemental in hand to bounce a creature. Our opponent plays Red Dragon. This is more of what I was afraid of. This is a 4/4 creature that deals 4 to us when it comes into play, and they equip it with the Boots of Speed, so they smash in for 5. We're now down to 11. That was quite harmful. We don't even really want to bounce this creature, because it's just going to do 4 more damage to us. So here's what we'll do instead. I'm going to attack with our Conjurer. It's now 11 to 17. We're going to Plundering Barbarians, destroying their Boots of Speed. And on their turn, we're going to use the Dragon Turtle 3/5 flash to drag below the Red Dragon. So they'll have 2 turns where they can't use their Red Dragon. They're casting Dueling Rapier, so they're all in on cheap equipment. Okay, they cast Valor Singer, 2/3, gives one of their creatures +1/+0 before combat on their turn. But we have their dragon tapped down now. Our wizard class is continuing to tick up our side of the board. We're attacking with a couple of 3-power creatures. We're now tied at 11. I think now we're going to cast Swarming Goblins. 4/3 creature. We rolled well, so we get 2 extra goblins. We have quite the board presence here. Our opponent is under a lot of pressure, and their red dragon is still tapped down. Wow. Our opponent goes Fighter class, a rare. So they get to search their library for an equipment card, and they get Hand of Vecna. 2 straight Hand of Vecna opponents we're going against. And they play Dancing Sword, a rare equipment that gives +2/+1. Wow. They got all the good rares for their deck. Now, what are we going to do? I think what we're going to do is smash them in the face. So they can block one of our creatures, and I think they still die, because we can cast our Air Cult Elemental, bounce their Valor Singer, attack with everything, and if I'm not mistaken, they just die here. That is exactly what happens. We have won the video game. Whew. That might not have felt very close for our opponent, but it felt close to me. They had a lot of good cards for the red-white equipment deck. They were short of Brunor, the uncommon red-white creature that rewards you for equipment, which, maybe they had in their deck and they just never drew. How many times can we win the coin toss? Only one way to find out. Well, we're going first, and our opening hand is 2 mountains and nothing that we can cast currently. We have a Plundering Barbarian, which we can cast off of any land. We have a Soul Knife Spy, which we can cast if we draw an island. And we have a Charmed Sleep, where we need 2 islands. I think we still have to keep. I don't love keeping that hand, and we could very easily just lose to drawing nothing. But I'm a gambler. This deck isn't called Coin Toss for nothing. Wow. Our opponent plays Plains Bag of Holding. Bag of Holding is not a good card. It's got a lot of text on it, but basically it lets you pay mana to draw cards and discard cards, and then eventually if you pay 4 mana and sacrifice it, you can get all of the cards that you discarded back. It's very slow and very clunky. It's not slow and clunky? Paladin class. They played a 1 mana enchantment, a rare, which is extraordinarily good. Once they level it up, it will be giving them +1/+1 for all their creatures. We're going to play Soul Knife Spy. Now, there's a good chance that we can do something great here. Our Spy draws us cards whenever we connect, and they spend their turn playing a creature. This is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted, because we can now play Dragon's Fire, which we drew, to kill the Paladin. We attack with the Soul Knife Spy, putting them to 17, and we draw a card. Oh, the feeling of drawing a card for free. Now, unfortunately, our opponent responds by playing Cloister Gargoyle, which is an 0/4 that lets them venture into the dungeon. So unless we draw an island, our plundering days are over. Oh, but wait. I'm a fool. I have Plundering Barbarian, and Cloister Gargoyle is an artifact creature. Look at me, reading cards. So we play the Plundering Barbarian, we destroy the Gargoyle, a 2-for-1, and then we attack with the Spy, putting them to 14, and we draw yet another card. This is incredible. We drew Magic Missile, another removal spell. We might just roll them by removing their creatures and playing Soul Knife Spy. Our opponent played Dungeon Map. This is a 3 mana rock. It adds a mana. Not very good. They did nothing on their turn, essentially. We're going to hit them for 5, down to 9. And we draw another card. This is a thing of beauty. We'll cast Wizard class on our turn. And we have 4 available mana. The Paladin class makes our spells more expensive on their turn, so we're going to cast Unexpected Windfall now, because this is the only time we really can. And what do we get rid of, though? I think we get rid of, weird as it is, I think Earth Cult Elemental. It's just too expensive. And we have 3 more removal spells in hand. If we play our cards right, which is what we aim to do with this deck, obviously, all we're going to do is remove each creature they play for the rest of the game and draw a card over and over. Our opponent is using their turn to activate Bag of Holding. This is not a winning proposition for them. They cast Priest of Ancient Lore, a 2/1 that gains them a life, draws them a card. That's good, but it's not going to be good enough, because we're going to Burning Hands it, and they surrender. That was just a great hand that worked out very well, where we removed their creatures and kept hitting them with Soul Knife Spy, which drew us 4 additional cards that game. And with that, we rank up to Gold tier. We are now 3-0. Even if we lose out from here, if we lose every single game, this will be one of our best results so far. Let's keep the momentum going, though. This feels like a medium deck, but it's playing out quite well so far. Our opponent is going first. However, we have a quite nice draw, with a removal spell and Burning Hands, a turn 3 play in either Clever Conjurer or Plundering Barbarian, and a way to restock with Unexpected Windfall. Our opponent starts with Evolving Wilds, which they crack immediately for a swamp. I have to respect an opponent who immediately cracks Evolving Wilds. No reason to risk forgetting to crack it. and they go plains. So we're against a black-white opponent. Expert level analysis from your boy. Ooh, or is it? Because they followed up with an island. We are going up against an Esper build. They play Vampire Spawn, a 2/3 which drains us for 2 when it comes into play. It's 18 to 22. We could Burning Hands, but I really don't see a reason to, because we're going to play Clever Conjurer, a 2/3. 2/3 creatures. That's the name of the game in this format. Our opponent plays Cridle of Baldur's Gate. This is a legendary 1/3, and it makes it so that when you attack, you can pay 2 to make a creature unable to block, which is what they do. They attack with their Vampire Spawn and paid an extra 2, so we are now at 16. I'm really not concerned or upset with what's happening here. We are going to... I think we're going to pass the turn. We drew Dragon Turtle. That's the important thing. So Cridle, in addition to making creatures unblockable, when Cridle attacks and hits a player, that player loses a life and mills a card. They gain a life and scry 1. We really don't want that to hit us. So we're going to cast Dragon Turtle. Drag below Cridle. They're both tapped. We have a 3/5 waiting in the wings. Now, our opponent still has a play. They played Arborea Pegasus, giving their vampire +1 and flying. So they're going to hit us for another 3. We just can't stop that from happening. We're at 13. They're at 22. Things are getting dicier by the second, because we have not drawn a land. However, what we can do is tap 2 mana to cast Burning Hands on their Pegasus. Then we can realize that Burning Hands is not Dragonfire, and that didn't actually kill the Pegasus. Don't we look foolish? Ah, well. We're on a bit of a clock here. Our opponent has a 2/3 flyer and a 2/3 creature that they can pay extra mana to make unblockable. So we're at 9. They're at 22. And our opponent plays Planar Ally, 5 mana 3/3 flyer. We have drawn yet another Plundering Barbarian. I think what we're going to do this turn, if only we had 1 extra land in play. We don't. We'll use our Conjurer and our Treasure Token. We're going to cast Air Cult Elemental, 2/5 flyer, bounces a creature. Bounce their Planar Ally back to hand, so we used up their turn. And then we're going to attack them for 5. It's 9 to 17. I mean, it doesn't look spectacular for us. We'll see what other cards they have. Their mana base looks incredibly shaky. They're playing 3 color with an Evolving Wilds, from what I can tell. Opponent did not attack. That's quite good for us. Our 2/5 flyer is going to be a problem for them. Here's what we'll do this turn. We're going to play Unexpected Windfall. Discard one of our mini Plundering Barbarians. Draw 2 cards. Make 2 treasures. We now have 2 Charmed Sleeps in hand. I like that. And so we're going to cast Charmed Sleep on their Planar Ally. Attack with our Dragon Turtle. And see what they do about it. They take it. It's 9 to 14. We'll then untap an island and cast a Trickster's Talisman. Again, this is a cheap equipment. It gives +1/+1, and whenever the equipped creature hits a player, we can sacrifice the talisman to make a copy of that creature. opponent is attacking us with a 2/3 flyer, the Pegasus. And they're using Krydle to make it unblockable? No. They're goading us into blocking it. We're not blocking it. They almost certainly had a combat trick there. There's no reason for that attack if you don't have a combat trick. They did have a Grim Bounty, which destroyed our Dragon Turtle. Somewhat unfortunate. Now, however, we can spend 2 mana to equip our Air Cult Elemental. We can attack with it. They have no blocker. And we can sacrifice that equipment to make another copy of Air Cult Elemental. Now, what creature do we want to bounce back to their hand? That's the question. I think we bounce back Krydle. Their other 2 creatures have enter the battlefield effects. It's better for us to just waste their mana. Okay. From here, we could put another Plundering Barbarian into play, but I'd rather wait. A 2/2 really doesn't change any of the equations here. And what if they play a sweet artifact that we want to kill? Our opponent hits us for 2 with their Pegasus. It is now 5-11. Our opponent recast Krydle in past. I think now we will attack with everything. Except the Clever Conjurer, perhaps. It's now 5-7. Very close game. Let's cast an Earth Cult Elemental, I think. And hope we roll well. We roll a natural 20, of course. Why wouldn't we? Our opponent now has to sacrifice 2 permanents. It's really not that big of a burden for them. They have a treasure token. They have their planar ally, who is tapped and can't untap. But instead they sacrifice Krydle. This is troublesome. This seems to suggest to me they have a way to kill us right now. They played at the end of our turn a Manticore, a 2/1 flyer. So they're attacking us for 4 flying. We have no flying blockers. If they have anything, we're going to die. They didn't have a combat trick. We're still alive. They passed to us. Well, this is very interesting, isn't it? In that case, here's what we're going to try to do. We drew an Air Cult Elemental. So we're going to cast it, bouncing their Vampire Spawn to their hand. Going to attack with everything. Our opponent plays a Manticore, allowing a single block, putting them at 3. They're going to cast their Vampire Spawn and kill us on their turn. That's what they would do if they weren't fucking around. Instead, they will recast Krydle, make their Pegasus unblockable, and kill us. Well, in the end, it does the same thing, doesn't it? Oh, that game was so close. I wonder if we could have won if we had cast Charmed Sleep on the Vampire Spawn instead. I think I still would have done the same thing. I still would have attacked out. They still would have had enough creatures. So I don't feel so bad. We didn't misplay there. Very close game. We're now 3-1. Well, we've kept previous hands with 2 off-color lands. This one is not going to work, though. We can literally cast none of our spells. And if we draw a land, the spell we can cast is Plundering Barbarian, which is not that good. So we have to mulligan. Second hand looks better. Second hand has 3 lands, Contact Other Plane, which will draw some extra cards to help us recover, a Barbarian for an early play, and Swarming Goblins. We're going to keep this, and we're going to ship an Air Cult Elemental. Too expensive on a mulligan. We drew Burning Hands. A good draw to smooth things out here. Our opponent has played Mountain Plains and a +2 mace. An equipment that gives +2/+2. Very good. But other than that, they haven't played anything. Well, we're in good shape here because we are going to play Plundering Barbarian. And we are going to destroy that mace. Plundering Barbarian, I think, is actually very good. It's a very easy 2-for-1 in most situations. Our opponent responds with Veteran Dungeoneer, a 3/4 that lets them venture into... Anyone want to guess? That's right. The Lost Mine of Phandelver. We're going to pass the turn, I believe, in the interest of contacting another plane at the end of their turn. Our opponent plays Goblin Morningstar. This is an equipment that makes a goblin that comes into play. And they rolled very well. They rolled a 20. I mean, as we've discussed, every other die roll is either a 20 or a 1. But not a big deal here. It means they get a goblin and they attach the Morningstar to it. So it's a 2/1 trample goblin now. We'll let them go to attacks. They attack with their Dungeoneer. We take 3. It is now 17-20, and we are going to contact another plane. We roll a die. We get a 10, which is good. It means we scry 2 and draw 2 cards. We see a land on top, which is good. We need that. And a Clever Conjurer, which at this point is not that good. So we'll get rid of that card. Okay. So now it comes to our turn. We'll play a land. This is interesting. We could kill both their creatures. We have a Ray of Frost, and we also have a Burning Hands. So we just kill both their creatures and go on the offensive. Or we could just hold back and cast Faraday's Fireball, using up all our mana. It's tricky. What if they have some sort of trick, though? I think as little as I like to, we're going to Burning Hands, hit the Goblin, destroy it, and then Ray of Frost on the Dungeoneer. I think this just plays better around the kinds of things that they might have in their hand right now. Then we'll attack with our Barbarian. It's now 17-18. I don't know how I feel about that play. Our opponent then plays another Veteran Dungeoneer, so they're delving deeper into the mines. We still have removal spells, so I think we're still going to play them. Cast Faraday's Fireball on their Dungeoneer. It has the extra clause, that Fireball. You roll a die, and I did not a good roll, so we both took an extra 2 damage. But seeing as we're on the beatdown right now, we're going to hit them for 2, so it's 15-14. We'll go ahead and play a land and cast Trickster's Talisman. Our opponent has 5 cards in hand, so the odds of them having nothing good to do is low, and indeed, they play Swarming Goblins. A 4/3 goblin that makes a 1/1 goblin when it comes into play. We have a Swarming Goblins of our own. Would we rather do that? Or would we rather Unexpected Windfall? I think we cast our own Swarming Goblins. We just don't want to get beat down that hard. We're kind of stalled out here. Our opponent is attacking with their 4/3 goblins, daring us to block. We're going to triple block. It feels like they have a combat trick. They have a removal spell, Dragon's Fire. So we traded our creatures for theirs, and that's their turn. Honestly, not good, but not the worst either. We'll cast Unexpected Windfall, ditch a land, draw some cards. Okay. This is actually pretty good. We drew a land, which isn't good, but we drew Dragon Turtle, which is good. We'll pass. We'll cast the turtle on their turn. Tap down their token. And now they don't have a good attack. What they do have is another Swarming Goblins. You know, for the equipment deck, that's a good card. It just puts more things you can put more equipment onto. Okay. We drew a Charmed Sleep, which is good. We're going to keep our opponent's 4/3 tap down. We'll equip our Dragon Turtle. Unfortunately, it's still tapped, so can't do anything with that. Not until next turn. Opponent has 4 cards in hand. They always have more cards. We have cast the card draw spell this game. They have not. They have 3 more cards than we do in hand. Does that seem right to you? Our opponent passed without doing anything, which is troublesome. It makes me think they have a combat trick for their goblin. Well, we drew an Air Cult Elemental, so we're going to test them right now. We're going to cast it. 2/5 flyer. Bounce their goblin, which will effectively kill it. Then we're going to attack with our Dragon Turtle. The question now is, do we go ahead and sacrifice our talisman to make a copy? I think we decline. Given that we have an Air Cult Elemental in play, next turn we could equip the Air Cult Elemental. And if they don't have a flyer, we're going to hit them with it and bounce whatever their next creature is and do a lot of damage. Our opponent plays Hoarding Ogre, 4 mana 3/3, the Hill Giant. We actually do love to see it. So we're going to move the Trickster's Talisman to our Air Cult Elemental. Attack with both our creatures. Our opponent is blocking, double blocking even. And then I can take the action to make a copy of Air Cult Elemental, bounce their token, and end the turn. It's now 15-7, and we have 2/5 flyers in play. Opponent still has 4 cards in hand, so you never know. And we're out of gas. We have 2 cards in hand, and they're both lands. Our opponent plays Faraday's Fireball, killing one of our flyers. Not the best. So now it's 13-7. We're going to attack with our Elemental. They're now at 5. We'll also play a Plundering Barbarian, which we drew. And we're going to destroy their incredibly annoying Goblin Morningstar. The Barbarians have been very good. Obviously, they're very good against the equipment deck. Our opponent plays their own Plundering Barbarian, which will destroy our treasure. No, they make their own treasure. That seems like a misplay on their part. Okay, we're going to go ahead and attack. They block. So our Barbarians trade. They're now at 3 life. We drew a Soul Knife Spy. 3/2. Our opponent needs to deal with our remaining Air Cult Elemental. Instead, what they have is a Dragon's Fire. They kill our Soul Knife Spy. They play a Devoted Paladin, 5 mana 4/4. We're going to hit them with our Air Cult Elemental. They're at 1 life. Let's see if we can end it potentially. We drew Wizard class, so we're going to cast it. We're going to level it up to draw some cards. We drew a Charmed Sleep. So this is potentially very, very good. And you know what? We're also going to sacrifice our treasure to level Wizard class up to 3. So now every turn we're going to be getting a +1/+1 counter. Our opponent needs to answer our Air Cult Elemental right now. They are unable to, and they surrender. Victory for the Horde. We are now at 4 wins and 1 loss. The adrenaline is pumping through my veins. That's certainly what you came here for. Heart-pumping excitement. Alright, let's see what we can do in the next game. This is not a very good hand. We have 4 lands, a Soul Knife Spy on turn 3. No way to get it through. And after that, a Shortcut Seeker, which is a 4-mana version of the same card, basically. And then a 6-mana play. We're going first. I don't think this hand is very good. And I think we can do better. I'm going to mulligan, and I'll probably regret it. Okay. We have better earlier plays. We have Dragon's Fire, a Plundering Barbarian. We'll keep this. Our opponent starts with Hall of Storm Giants. We've seen this once before. It's a blue land that for 6 mana becomes a 7/7 giant with Ward 3. My god. Well, hopefully it doesn't come to that. We have nothing better to do on turn 3, so we're going to make a Barbarian and a Treasure Token. They do nothing on their turn, so we're going to attack them for 2. We did not draw a land, but we did draw Contact Other Plane, which we're just going to cast on our turn, even though it's an instant, because we would really like to hit a land drop. We drew 2 lands. That's very good. So we'll play our land and cast Trickster's Talisman. This card has definitely performed so far. I've been impressed. Nice little stat boost, and then making a copy of your creature is very strong. Our opponent plays Genie Windseer, 3/3 flyer. It's going to let them scry 2. All of this is good. Our opponent keeps 2 cards on top. That is not as good. We're going to Dragon's Fire their Windseer. And then we're going to equip our Barbarian. Hit them for 3. We will decline making a copy of it at this time. Or should we? That's tough. I think we'll decline. We'd basically be giving up the +1/+1 from the Trickster in exchange for a 2/2 creature and a Treasure Token. I think we can do better. Our opponent plays another Genie Windseer. Now, we have options here. I think what we're going to do, we're going to offer them the trade, which they accept. So our Barbarian's dead, their Windseer's dead. We have enough mana now. We're going to cast Earth Cult Elemental. 6/6, we roll a dice. We didn't get a good result, so each player sacrifices a permanent. As loath as I am to do it, I think we're going to get rid of our Trickster's Talisman. But what if we draw a land next turn? You know what? I take it back. We're losing a land, and so is our opponent. I was going to get rid of the Talisman because we have another Elementalist, or Earth Cult Elemental rather, that we could cast next turn. If we have enough land, but we don't. This is all fine. Our opponent passed without doing anything. So we're going to equip our Earth Cult Elemental. Wow. So our opponent has Ray of Frost, which is a fine card. It's an enchantment that makes it so that your creature doesn't untap. But the catch is, if it's a red card, it taps the creature. So we don't even get to attack with our Elemental. Now that is sad for us. But what's sad for our opponent is we're going to play Clever Conjurer, which we drew this turn, which will allow us on our turn to untap the Elemental. Suck on that one, opponent. I think our Earth Cult Elemental trigger really did a number on our opponent, because they have not played another land, and they had to sacrifice a land to our Elemental. If you thought that was bad, things are about to get much, much worse. This is amazing. So our opponent is playing Scion of Stygia. is a 2/1 flash. They're playing at the beginning of our turn. And they are tapping our Clever Conjurer, so we can't untap our Earth Cult Elemental. I really hope we draw a land this turn. If we do, we get to Earth Cult Elemental them anyway. Alas, we didn't. We drew an Unexpected Windfall, which is very awkward, because it lets us discard a card to draw 2 cards and make some treasures. But we really don't want to discard any of our cards. We're just going to pass. Wow, very interesting. Our opponent plays a mythic rare, Eliwick Tumblestrum. So let me read this card. There's a lot to it. 4 loyalty, +1 venture into the dungeon, which is what they're doing. +2, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You get a creature from among them and put it into your hand. If it's legendary, you gain 3 life. -7, you get an emblem that gives a lot of stats to your creatures if you've completed a dungeon. Huh. Okay. We're going to cast Dragon Turtle. Tap down their Scion of Stygia. And now it's our turn. So, let's untap our Earth Cult Elemental. And let's attack. We're just going to attack our opponent. And regardless, they're going to use their Goblin they got in their dungeon to block it. We expected that. Now it's going to be real trouble for them. We're going to cast another Earth Cult Elemental. We rolled poorly, so we have to sacrifice a permanent. No big deal. We lose a land. We no longer really need it. Our opponent got rid of their last remaining creature. So now they have their Eliwick Tumblestrum at 6 loyalty. They have no creatures in play. Until now. They cast Ochre Jelly, an ooze, a 4/4 trample. And when it dies, you make a token that has half as many counters on it. So this is going to die into a 2/2 trample and then a 1/1 trample. Okay. We really don't care about that. Because we're just going to attack Ellie Tumblestrum for a lot of damage. We'll attack our opponent as well. They block very bold of them. And see, if I was clever, what I should have done there is moved the talisman over to the Dragon Turtle. Then it would have killed their jelly. Ah well, what can you do? What can you do? Our hand now is an Unexpected Windfall and a Ray of Frost. Again, this is awkward because we really don't want to discard the Ray of Frost to the Unexpected Windfall. Wow, our opponent's on the mono rare plan. They play Ranger class. So this is an enchantment. It makes a 2/2 wolf when it comes into play. This is one of the best cards in this set. And when they attack, they put a 1/1 counter on attacking creature. So they put a counter on their jelly, hitting us for 5. This is not going to work out for our opponent, though, because now what we're going to do is Ray of Frost their jelly. Now it doesn't untap. Untap our Earth Cult Elemental. I think we're going to move the equipment over to our Dragon Turtle. Just attack with everything. Our opponent has to block now. And instead they surrender. Wow. I'm very proud of us for winning that game because our opponent had a lot of rares and a lot of very good rares. We are now 5-1. We are now positive. No matter what happens from here on out, we have made back the gems that we paid to get into this draft. Are you proud of me? Lavish me with praise. My delicate, glass-like ego needs this. I need this. Let's continue. Well, with this hand, we're going first. We have 2 lands. We have Dragon's Fire, so we have an early play. We have Plundering Barbarian. And then we have expensive spells that it's going to take a while to get there. I think it's good enough, though. Having the early removal is very key for this hand. Wow. That's also good for us. Our opponent played Neverwinter Dryad, which is a 1-mana creature that you can pay to and sacrifice to get a forest. You know what? I want to be a little bit greedy here. I'm going to use the Dragon's Fire on the Dryad. Maybe our opponent is as greedy as we are, and they were counting on having that creature so they could get a land. Let's cross our fingers. Let's especially cross our fingers because we have not drawn a land so far. We're going to play Wizard class. If we draw a land next turn, things are still okay. We did not. Our opponent hasn't done anything yet. We still have, I think, one more turn. If we draw a land, we can level up Wizard class, draw some extra cards. So what our opponent did there, they cast You Find Some Prisoners. It lets you destroy an artifact, or you exile the top 3 cards of target opponent's library, and then you can cast them with mana as though they're mana of any color. So they got our Dragon Turtle, but more importantly, they ditched 2 of our lands into the exile zone, and we still have not drawn a land. This might be a quick one. You know, the greed was going to catch up with me sooner or later. Our opponent has not missed a land drop, and they cast a rare. I mean, obviously. A 2/3 goblin. This is Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. 2/3. Other goblins get +1/+1. And then red tap. It deals damage equal to the number of goblins that enter the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. You know, I said rare as though it was like, wow, another rare. Look at my horrible luck, but that's not that good, is it? We finally drew a land, and remarkably, we're not under that much pressure. So we're going to put Charmed Sleep on our own Dragon Turtle, very sad, and pass the turn. The only positive thing I have to say here is that we have a lot of cards in hand, and we have the ability to draw even more cards with our Wizard class. Our opponent casts Unexpected Windfall, and then they attack us with their Hobgoblin. So it's 18 to 20. Wow, we really cannot draw cards to save our life. Literally to save our life. What we can do we just level up our Wizard class? I suppose so. We just need to hit land drops. If these top 2 cards are not lands, this game is very close to being over. Top 2 cards were lands. We're going to play one of those lands, and we're going to pass. It might be a bit too late at this point, because our opponent is untapping with 5 lands. They play another land, and they have 2 treasure tokens. And with that, they cast an Earth Cult Elemental of their own. 6/6, we have to sacrifice a permanent. Honestly, that's not so bad, because we've gotten most of the use out of our Wizard class. That's not that bad. Okay, so now what do we do on our turn? I think we're in sort of damage control mode. We have 5 mana. We're going to use all of it to cast a Swarming Goblins. Hope for a good die roll. Cross your fingers for me. You let me down. We rolled a 7. So we only get 1 extra blocker. And our opponent kills our Swarming Goblins, our 4/3, at the end of our turn with Dragon's Fire. I mean, they have a grip full of cards. We're not in terrific shape here. We're just going to chump block the 6/6. So now 14 to 20. They play Wandering Troubadour. Haven't seen this card yet. It's a 4/2. At the beginning of your end step, if you had a land come into play, you venture into the dungeon. So they're going to get venture many a time. And we're just drawing dead, essentially. I think what we do here is we're going to play Plundering Barbarian to make a 2/2. Pry it open with the Barbarian to make a treasure, because God knows we need some treasure. And then we're going to Burning Hands the Troubadour, kill their 4/2, put an end to their nonsense. Our opponent is beating us on board quite handily. However, we have a lot more cards in hand than they do. We have 6 cards in hand to their 3. But we really need to pray that they're out of gas. They're really not. They played Chaos Channeler, 4 mana 4/3. When it attacks, you roll a d20, and it lets you cast extra cards from hand. It doesn't get easier, does it? We don't really have a choice. We're going to cast Magic Missile, killing the Chaos Channeler. Now, we don't have... I guess we do have another play, don't we? We're going to sacrifice our treasure and cast Clever Conjurer, a 2/3. This will block the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. We're still going to take 6 damage this turn. Again, our situation is not very good. Ooh, and it just got way worse. They cast Faraday's Fireball, killing our Conjurer, and they rolled well, which means we take an extra 2 damage. They attack for 8, we're at 2. And there's no way we come back from this. So that's game. GG. I think we had it in us to beat that deck for sure. We just kept a kind of sketchy hand, and it didn't pan out. That happens. You have to keep those hands sometimes, though. We're now 5 wins, 2 losses. We're so close to total victory, so close to defeat, but no matter what happens, we've done well this draft. I think I'm going to take a quick break, and you don't have to worry about that, because through the magic of editing, we'll just pick up next game. See you there. Alright, and we're back. Trying to wrap up this draft with a few more wins. But again, we're happy where we are. We don't even care if we win. We're just floating on the breeze. We won't be devastated if we lose out from here. A good hand. We have 3 lands. Our opponent's going first, but we have Ray of Frost as removal, Plundering Barbarian, who's been an all-star so far, Clever Conjurer for a little bit of ramp, and an Unexpected Windfall for a little bit of card selection and ramp. This seems fine. Our opponent starts with an Evolving Wilds and cracks it. Always respect that, and they get an island. We're going to match them with an island. Beautiful art by Adam Paque. Oh, if only we drew a wizard class, a 1 mana play. Would have been nice to have that on turn 1, but honestly, not bad on turn 2 either. Our opponent went forest, so another blue-green deck. I have to admit, the blue-green deck intimidates me the most, I think. And that might be because of a certain deck we faced a few drafts ago and how brutal it was. Opponent plays Displacer Beast, 3 mana 3/2, comes into play in Ventures. They can pay for and bounce it back to their hand. But what if we simply kill it with Dragon's Fire? You know, they've already gotten value out of it. How much do we really care? I think, honestly, we haven't drawn land, so we're going to play Clever Conjurer. Or do we want to? Ooh, this is tricky. Because next turn, if we don't draw anything, we could simply level up Wizard class. Whew, this is tricky indeed. We're going to Dragon's Fire. Get our value when we can. we're doing it on our turn, so they can't counterspell, they can't hexproof, they can't trick us in any way. I'm nervous all of a sudden. I don't know why. Opponent plays Secret Door. Yuck. 0-4 Wall to Defender. 5 mana, venture into the dungeon. A very bad card. We should be very pleased to see it, honestly. It is an artifact, so we can kill it at our leisure. I think what we're going to do... man, so many options. We're going to play Shortcut Seeker. Use up our mana for the turn. This is a 2/5 creature. When it damages a player, we venture into the dungeon. If our opponent doesn't put another creature into play... Never mind. For the second time in this series, we are facing Volo, Guide to Monsters, a legendary 3/2. When our opponent casts a creature spell, they copy it, assuming that it doesn't have a creature type in common with their other creatures. It's very unfortunate. We basically need a way to kill Volo immediately. So I think here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the Plundering Barbarian. We're going to destroy their Secret Door. We're going to attack with our Shortcut Seeker. They're not going to block because they want their Volo to live, obviously. And we're going to go to... It almost doesn't matter. Them playing Volo and us not having a removal spell feels like the end of the game, basically. I hate to be that pessimistic, but literally any creature they play this turn, and they play a great one. Rime Shield Frost Giant, 4/5, Ward 3, and they get 2 copies of it. That's basically the game right there. I mean, we're going to level up our Wizard class. Draw 2 cards. We don't see a way to remove Volo. I'm conceding. It's very interesting. There are obviously a lot of great cards in this format. I myself have been lucky enough to open Mordenkainen twice, and he is an A+ great. Volo just seems truly absurd. A 4-mana play where no matter what creature you cast afterwards, you will basically win the game. How far behind do you have to be for Volo to not win you the game? That's what makes him an A+. He's just insane. Well, that is our 3rd loss, and that concludes the draft. That was a quick venture back into things. Like I said, I'm very satisfied. We earned back our gems that we paid for the draft. We got to gold rank. That was wonderful. We didn't have a lot of... We had one rare, which was Dragon Turtle, which is admittedly not the best rare by any means. And that deck worked out very well. We got beat at the very end by an A+ bomb. I'm happy. I hope you are happy listening to this series. If you've been enjoying the show, I would really appreciate it if you let me know. I'm on Twitter at Volfmyr, VOLFMYR. Go ahead and tweet at me. We're also, of course, on Twitter at RedBlueMTG. And I hope you've been enjoying the series. I hope it's been helping you on your commute. I hope it's been helping you get to sleep. I hope it's been helping you learn how not to draft. But hopefully we're getting better. Thanks for joining me. Good day.